for the Naiji, there is as mentioned with the, say, conceptual nature of G and HSP and a few other things, there is a need to interface with the environment, but it's difficult to set that up. So getting people who can understand how you would need things set up, and then keeping them around to sort of always have a bubble of your universe, as it were, with you. Naiji actually naturally possess a great deal of self-possession, and they can kind of walk around as like an island of them, which they need to, because otherwise the environment would be too impinging on them. They need to have that sort of disposition, but it can be greatly augmented by being around other Naiji. This will relate heavily to the to the maximum potential of a Naiji. Naiji need to be in the company of like-minded spirits, people who push themselves that hard, who are that interested in truth, things of that nature. If they don't get this, it can be difficult for Naiji to realize how they're supposed to use their Ji, because the way that the Naiji is supposed to use their Ji is not normal for standard conversation or standard being out in public interaction. So it requires a special kind of interaction, but Naiji need quite a bit of it. So it's not something they want to actually just sort of like do here and there. They kind of need constant access to it. So if they are around fellow Naiji, they can actually experience the way their Ji is supposed to be, which has sort of a very geek out, fanatical, uber intense quality to it, and not have that be a problem. What else? It can, like I said, help protect you from the environment, because when Naiji Wolfpacks go out, they have a tendency to them that tends to get a sort of zone of being left alone, and this can give the individual members of the pack energetic respite, because otherwise they're going to have to give sort of like that baleful gaze a lot, and they're going to have to at least be not doing distracted, deep Nai thinking as much as maybe they'd like to in the environment. But if you travel with a Naiji wolf pack, the group can sort of take turns who's being alert to the environment and who is not, and then the other members can actually use that time to do lots of Nai drifting, so that normally traveling out and about is not an opportunity to be able to do that, but it could be. A few more thoughts is that it is noteworthy that there are many famous groups of Naiji in revolutionary activities, the cutting edge of sciences, artistic groups, political groups, philosophical groups, what else? Spiritual groups, pretty much anything that has a major influence on the ways and thinking of a people. That's very important. Individual Naiji and Naiji wolf packs can actually group together to do this. This is important because a lot of Naiji are so independent-minded that they sort of have a great deal of their self-identity in that they do not actually group up with other people. But actually Naiji do actually have a history of doing that if they can be around those they respect. So in this way Naiji are sort of elitist, but not in the bad way. It's simply that they need to be around people who want to either fetish, kensei, geek out, go fanatical on something, and people who want to do that, they can share a single vision through a group work. For example, lots of movies are made by Naiji Wolfpacks where the screenwriter was a Naiji, the director is a Naiji, many of the producers, if not all of them, are Naiji, often sometimes Naiji as well. But then, the actors, yada yada. So there's actually a great many, and they are able to all feel that they're contributing and still feel they're supremely independent-minded and their own persons. That's important. It is also noteworthy that the Wolfpacks seem to actually be more prevalent in males over females, although it's not exclusive. Females also do click up in this way, sort of like your classic, witches coven kind of deal. But the data will kind of show whether or not that's meme-based or something else, but that is actually noteworthy is that there's more propensity of the males to actually sort of go into a gang of Naiji. Even in music artists, where that would be expected to be a bit more even, it's even noticeable in that field, so that's why it's noteworthy. But the data so far, we have about 10,000 samples, and we're still working. So that's still a small selection of the data. So, but that is the data showing so far. What else? These Wolfpacks do not have to be in person. In fact, the phenomenon is so powerful, and the connection Naiji have is unusual. So often these Wolfpacks can assemble and disband, with the connection being felt among its members not lessening. Because, for example, the way that Naiji can talk in a book and then have another person talk back in a critique or another book, that Wolfpackness can actually continue through them doing works abroad, but they're doing it together. What else? Naiji can Wolfpack up and have never met at all. That's not uncommon either, which is why the internet is a wonderful thing for Naiji, because Naiji have been doing this for quite some time, where they have met each other through letters or through books, so that they never met in person, not once, not in their entire life, but actually they would consider that person to be one of their deepest, truest friends, even though they never ever were probably set foot in the same country as the other person. That's really not the relevant thing. The relevant thing is that they were sharing a vision and trying to achieve a similar kind of cause. What else? You'll see this a lot in, for example, artists and athletes as well. That camaraderie, for example, there are many Naiji elite athletes, and I know that most elite athletes, but this time I'm just putting an analogy to the Naiji, of when certain athletes would boycott, like say the Olympics or whatever, it could be very upsetting because they felt a deep kinship with these other athletes who had dedicated their entire life to a sport like them. So really, although they're competing, there was actually a great sense of being around fellow kenseis. So there can be a strong feeling of kinship of a person in that way. It can go even further sometimes to where a Naiji, oftentimes if they are very maybe pulled away from Ji and its more standardized uses, is associating with dead people, even fictitious people. So it's important to note, a lot of Naiji who think they're total loners, they're not. They actually will always do that. They'll find a group, even if it's made up Martians in their head, to roll with. They need to roll with beings that they feel are like worthy of being in their little heroic band. And for Naiji, that's going to obviously focus on those main four: the Naizi, the Jinai, the Nijai, and the Naiji. And there's always that part in the story where there's like, an orgy of Naijiness. And during that part of the story, the Naiji usually need to be by themselves, and actually need to be, at the deepest, every mojo is this way, need to be with their own gender and their own sexual orientation, because that's your storyline, and at some point every mojo needs the ability to just geek the fuck out on their native storyline. Naiji can have more difficulty, as mentioned in the scarcity and rarity thing, because they often don't know what they are, and when they do know what they are, they still often take the tack of, I'm under threat from the environment, stay alone, close the doors, be very, very, uber paranoid, conspiracy theorist, so it doesn't really lend to making a lot of friends. But Naiji do in fact need friends, and in fact they need an intense band of like enlightenment heist artists, because that's what they need to do. They need to go out there and go bag themselves some enlightenment, and it's actually easier to do that with a crew, so there you go.